welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be exploring some ancient knowledge,
Okay.
looking at the writings of Shri, Suresh, Kumar, Makam.
All right.
And Shri Suresh is a disciple of the revered Shri Raghavendra Rao Sahib.
Okay.
And one of the things I wanted to point out before we even get going is that Shri Suresh starts his book with a disclaimer.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah, and it's kind of a powerful one.
Yeah.
He says, cleanse your manas.
Yeah, moms.
Yeah, your mind.
Right.
With the practice of satana.
Okay.
And then go through literature. Otherwise, reality will be lost upon you.
That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
I mean, it suggests that you need to come to this material with a certain mindset or with a mind that's been prepared to receive this information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you need to have gone through some kind of a process or some kind of a practice or satana before you can really even begin to understand it.
Yeah.
And from what I've read, Shri Suresh dives deep.
Uh-huh.
He goes into the origins of language and sound. He talks about the nature of the soul.
Interesting.
He even talks about the power of transmission.
Hmm.
So there's a lot in here.
Yeah, it sounds like he covers a lot of ground
He does.
in these writings.
And yet, you know, one of the things that I find fascinating is
Yeah.
how he connects all these different topics together.
Uh-huh.
So like ancient Indian philosophy with these really deep insights about like who we are as humans.
Yeah.
You know, the human condition and how to reach like higher consciousness.
It's all interconnected.
Yeah.
That's the thing about a lot of these ancient traditions is that they don't see these things as separate.
Right.
You know, they see it all as part of one big whole,
Absolutely.
like a tapestry.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned the origins of language and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And Shri Suresh talks about this idea of
Yeah.
Naada, Shabda, Akshara,
Okay.
which translates to primordial sound,
Primordial sound.
expressed sound,
Okay.
and the eternal letter.
The eternal letter.
It's kind of abstract.
Yeah.
But he really links these to like the very essence of creation.
It is abstract.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting at how ancient Indian thought really viewed the universe.
Okay.
I mean, sound wasn't just something that you heard.
Right.
It was considered like a fundamental building block of reality.
Mm.
If you think about the Sanskrit word for letter akshara,
Okay.
it actually means which remains forever.
Wow.
So it suggests this really deep connection between sound
Right.
and the eternal,
It's interesting.
the unchanging essence of existence.
Yeah, it's like these letters, these sounds, they carry a certain timeless quality, a
Right.
vibration that just echoes through the ages.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to understand now why that disclaimer at the beginning of the book is so important.
I think it's all about, you know, like tuning yourself,
Yeah.
turning your awareness to a different frequency,
Right.
and preparing yourself
Yeah.
to actually be able to perceive these really subtle concepts.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Shri Suresh also talks about this really fascinating system of education called the Gurukula system.
Gurukula.
Yeah, and for our listeners,
Yeah.
just imagine a world
Okay.
where learning wasn't confined to like classrooms
Right.
or textbooks,
Yeah.
but instead you lived with your guru.
With your guru.
Yeah, and you experienced knowledge directly through life itself.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, that reminds me of Plato's Academy
Oh, yeah.
in ancient Greece.
Okay.
It's a very similar concept
Oh.
where they weren't just trying to cultivate knowledge, they were
Yeah.
trying to cultivate character
Uh-huh.
and a way of life.
Yeah, and Shri Suresh gives some really vivid examples of the Gurukula system in action,
Like what?
like the story of Prahlada Deva.
Oh, yeah, Prahlada.
Yeah, the young prince who attends Gurukula even though his father is opposed to the teachings.
Right.
And then there's that really cool unbroken lineage of knowledge
Uh-huh.
that's passed from the sage Brigu
Right.
to his son Jamadanya.
Yeah.
And of course, the legendary universities like Nalanda and Takshila.
Those were amazing places. I
Yeah.
mean, those weren't just schools. They were like centers of
Yeah.
intellectual and spiritual development.
Absolutely.
And I think what Shri Suresh is trying to get at is that maybe our modern approach to education,
Yeah.
you know, with its emphasis on specialization and compartmentalization,
Yeah.
we've lost something essential.
It's a really good point.
You know,
I mean, have we sacrificed depth for breadth?
it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we know so much more now in terms of information,
Right.
but do we really understand it?
Yeah. Have we lost that holistic understanding of the world?
That's the question.
Okay, well, that's a really thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
But what about the relevance of all this ancient wisdom in today's world, you know, especially in the face of something as powerful and destructive as atomic weapons?
Mm-hmm.
Does Shri Suresh address that at all?
He does.
Yes.
And it's actually one of the most interesting parts of his analysis. He points to the restraint that's been shown by nations who possess atomic power, despite the obvious temptations to use them.
Right.
He argues that this restraint, even with that destructive potential at our fingertips, speaks to some enduring human values that are embedded in our collective consciousness.
Okay, but is it really about inherent values? Or is there like a more pragmatic reason for that restraint?
What?
Like fear of retaliation?
I mean, I think there's probably a combination of factors at play.
Yeah.
But Shri Suresh draws a really compelling parallel between the rules of war in the Mahabharata
Okay.
and modern agreements on nuclear disarmament.
Interesting.
Thousands of years ago, they were grappling with the ethical implications of weapons of mass destruction.
Wow.
And some of those principles,
Right.
like not attacking an unarmed opponent, are echoed in our modern treaties.
It's incredible that these ancient codes of conduct, they're like woven into the fabric of human consciousness, guiding us.
Yeah.
Even in the face of this unimaginable power.
I think that's what he's suggesting.
Yeah. So from sound and language to education
Right.
and even atomic weapons, it seems like Shri Suresh is building a case for the enduring relevance of ancient wisdom.
Absolutely. And it gets even deeper.
Okay.
From here,
Right.
he introduces this concept of Sahaj Marg,
Sahaj.
the path of effortless effort.
Okay.
And this is where he starts to differentiate what he calls the science of the soul from what he calls general sciences.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What does he mean by the science of the soul?
He describes it as a practical system for reaching higher states of consciousness built on a foundation of absolute acceptance faith.
Okay.
And so while general sciences focus on the external world,
Right.
the science of the soul, as he calls it, is about exploring the inner world of human consciousness.
So it's about going inward,
Yes.
exploring the depths of our own being.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that quote from Shri Suresh.
Which one?
He says, man has made his own world from his own thought power. And from the utilization of the same thought power in a right way, he can reach his homeland safely.
Powerful.
Yeah.
It suggests that we have the power to shape our reality,
Right.
both internal and external, through our thoughts and actions.
But it's also a call to use that power wisely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to align ourselves with something greater than our individual ego.
I think that's a key point.
And this leads us to what might be one of the most fascinating concepts that Shri Suresh introduces.
Okay, what's that?
The 3 interconnected books.
The 3 books.
Yeah, you've got my attention now.
All right.
What are these books?
He calls them the Book of Body,
Okay.
the Book of Soul,
Right.
and the Book of the Immaterial Absolute.
The immaterial absolute.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a way of understanding the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and spiritual selves,
So the body, the mind, and the spirit.
and how each book holds keys to unlocking our full potential.
Okay, so we're talking about the body, the soul, and something called the immaterial absolute.
Yes.
I'm ready to dive into these books and see what kind of wisdom they hold.
Let's do it. We'll explore that in our next segment.
Okay.
We'll dive into the intricacies of the human system.
This is getting really fascinating.
It is.
I can't wait to unpack these ideas further
Me too.
and see what other insights we can glean from Shri Suresh's unique perspective.
Sounds good. So you ready to delve into these books?
Absolutely.
Right.
We left off with this intriguing concept of the Book of Body, the Book of Soul, and the Book of the Immaterial Absolute.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious about how Shri Suresh connects these 3 seemingly distinct aspects of our being.
Well, Shri Suresh's perspective challenges the idea that these are separate entities.
Okay.
He sees them as these interconnected layers of our existence. And he begins with the Book of Body,
Okay.
not just as like a physical shell,
Right.
but as this complex energy system with the potential for profound transformation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I remember him mentioning something called Granthis.
Oh, right.
Can you remind me what those were again?
Yeah, so Granthis are these energetic knots,
Okay.
almost like blockages in our system that can hinder our spiritual progress. And he connects them to things like unresolved emotional patterns, limiting beliefs,
Right.
or even past traumas that we carry within us.
So it's like these Granthis are holding us back
Yeah,
from accessing our full potential,
exactly.
physically and spiritually.
Yeah, and Shri Suresh dives into specific yogic practices and techniques that can help dissolve these knots, allowing for a freer flow of energy.
And this is where his background in Sahaj Marg really comes into play, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He talks about the transmission of spiritual energy,
Prana,
from a guru to a disciple. Which can really accelerate this process of clearing those blockages.
That's fascinating. But what about those of us who might not have a guru in that traditional sense? Is this process still accessible?
Well, Shri Suresh does emphasize the importance of finding a qualified guide. But he also offers a range of practices that individuals can do on their own. He draws from ancient texts like the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, outlining various asanas, pranayamas, and mudras, each of which is designed to work with the body's energy system.
So it's not just about the physical postures. It's about intentionally working with these subtle energies within the body to facilitate transformation. It makes me think of things like acupuncture or other energy healing modalities.
That's a good comparison. Shri Suresh's approach is rooted in these ancient Indian traditions. But it really resonates with a lot of contemporary practices that are out there today that recognize the body as more than just flesh and bone.
So we've got this incredible energy system housed within our physical form. The Book of Body. But how does this connect to the Book of Soul?
So Shri Suresh sees the soul as the essence of who we are. The consciousness that inhabits this body. But it's not a static entity. He talks about the concept of karma. The law of cause and effect, which shapes our experiences through multiple lifetimes.
So our actions in this life and even past lives are creating these patterns that influence our present reality.
Exactly.
It feels like there's a lot of responsibility.
There is.
Embedded in that concept.
But he also emphasizes that we're not simply bound by our past karma. We have the power to make choices in this life that create new, more positive patterns, leading to what he calls moksha, or liberation.
That sounds pretty profound.
It is.
What does Shri Suresh actually mean by that?
He describes it as a state of freedom from suffering, a realization of our true nature as divine beings. And he emphasizes that this liberation isn't some far-off goal. It's something we can access here and now through self-realization and spiritual practice.
So it's not about escaping the world, but transforming our experience of it.
Exactly.
And it sounds like the Book of Body plays a key role in that process.
Absolutely. By working with our physical and energetic bodies, we create a foundation for that deeper exploration of the soul. But then there's this third book, the Book of the Immaterial Absolute. And this is where things get even more abstract.
Help me understand this one. What is the Immaterial Absolute?
So this is where Shri Suresh dives into the very nature of reality. The immaterial absolute, from his perspective, is the source from which all creation arises. It's beyond form, beyond duality, beyond even our limited human comprehension.
Wow, that is abstract.
It is.
But it sounds like he's suggesting that even though we may not fully grasp it with our minds, we're inherently connected to this source.
That's the key point. And he doesn't just leave it as this philosophical concept. He talks about the importance of faith. Not as blind belief, but as this deep trust in this underlying reality, a willingness to surrender to a power greater than ourselves.
It's like having faith that even though we can't see the air we breathe, it sustains us nonetheless.
That's a great analogy. And he emphasizes that this kind of faith requires courage. It's a willingness to step outside our comfort zones, to embrace the unknown, and to trust in the process of unfolding.
So we've got these three books, The Body of the Soul, and this vast, mysterious, immaterial absolute. I'm starting to see how they interweave.
Good.
But how does Shri Suresh suggest we begin to integrate these different aspects of ourselves? Where do we even start?
Well, he offers a multitude of practices and insights. But one of the key themes that emerges is the importance of sadhana.
Sadhana.
Which is spiritual discipline or practice.
So it's not just about reading these books. It's about putting the teachings into practice.
Exactly.
What kind of sadhana does he recommend?
He talks about a wide range of practices. Meditation, selfless service, ethical conduct, and the cultivation of positive qualities like gratitude, compassion, and forgiveness.
So it's about aligning our thoughts, words, and actions
Yes.
with our highest aspirations.
Exactly. Yeah. Gradually refining ourselves and moving towards that state of liberation that we talked about.
It sounds like a lifelong journey.
It is.
A process of continuous self-discovery and refinement.
Absolutely.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves,
okay,
I want to revisit this concept of nada, shabda, akshara.
Right.
We touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
But I'd love to explore it a little bit further, especially in light of these 3 books.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a concept that weaves its way through all 3 books.
Right.
Connecting the physical, the mental, and the spiritual.
Okay, so remind me again, what do those terms actually mean?
So nada is the primordial sound.
Okay.
The vibration that precedes manifestation.
Right.
The very source of creation.
Right.
Shabda is the expressed sound. Way that primordial vibration takes form in the world of language and experience.
Okay.
And akshara is the eternal letter.
Right.
The timeless essence that connects all sound and language back to that original source.
So it's like nada is the cosmic symphony.
Yeah.
Shabda is the music that we hear.
Uh-huh.
And akshara is the musical note itself.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, the building block of all sound.
And Shri Suresh emphasizes the power of language.
Right.
Particularly Sanskrit.
Okay.
As a tool for connecting to these deeper realities. And he points out that the Sanskrit word for letter akshara means that which remains forever.
It's like these letters, they carry this timeless wisdom,
right?
This vibration that connects us to something beyond the limitations of our physical existence.
I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, and this is where his emphasis on cleansing the mind,
right,
on preparing ourselves to receive this knowledge really makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about tuning our inner instrument
right,
so that we can resonate with those subtle frequencies and perceive those deeper truths that might otherwise be lost on us.
And I'm starting to see how this concept of nahada, shabda, akshara connects to his ideas about the Gurukula system of education.
How so?
Well, if language is so powerful,
right,
if it can connect us to the very source of creation, then the way we learn, the way we engage with language and knowledge becomes incredibly important.
That's a profound insight.
Yeah, and it gets to the heart of Shri Suresh's critique of modern education. It seems like he feels that we've lost something in our rush to specialize, to compartmentalize knowledge, and to focus on the purely intellectual.
Maybe we have.
Yeah.
It's possible.
We've neglected that transformative power of language.
Yeah.
The way it can shape our perception of reality and connect us to something greater than ourselves.
And this is where the Gurukula system, with its emphasis on holistic learning, on direct experience, and on the transmission of knowledge from a wise teacher, really stands in stark contrast.
It's like they understood the importance of not just filling the mind with facts, but cultivating wisdom, character, and a deep connection to the source of all knowledge.
Precisely.
It makes you wonder what our world would look like if we could integrate some of those principles into our modern approaches to education.
I think it would be a very different world.
Yeah, nurturing not just the intellect, but the whole being.
Right.
That's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
But how does Shri Suresh suggest we bridge that gap? How can we bring those ancient principles into a world that often feels so disconnected from these deeper truths?
Well, he points to the example of his own guru, Shri Raghavendra Rao Sahib, who despite leading a normal life as a family man and an educator, achieved seemingly the highest levels of spiritual realization.
So it's not about retreating from the world or becoming an ascetic. It's about finding a way to integrate these practices, these principles into our everyday lives.
It's about living a spiritual life in the midst of the world.
And I think that's what resonates with me the most about Shri Suresh's teachings. It's not about escaping the world, but it's about transforming our experience of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that transformation begins with ourselves, with understanding the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and spiritual aspects. It's about recognizing that we're not just bodies, We're not just minds. We're not just souls. We're a synthesis of all of these things.
And Shri Suresh provides us with these incredible tools and practices.
It does.
Like cleaning constant remembrance and these various yogic techniques to facilitate that integration, that journey towards wholeness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like he's offering us this toolkit for self-discovery, for exploring the depths of our own being and unlocking our full potential.
But he also stresses the importance of finding a qualified guide.
Yes.
A teacher who can illuminate the path and provide support along the way.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about individual effort.
Right.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, the role of grace, and the power of lineage.
Of wisdom passed down through generations of seekers.
And that brings us back to this concept of pranasya pranaha.
Yes.
The transmission of spiritual energy.
That's right.
Shri Suresh describes how a true guru can transmit this energy, facilitating the student's progress and accelerating their spiritual growth. It's like receiving a boost of spiritual energy, a catalyst for awakening and transformation.
And it's not just this mystical concept.
Right.
He talks about it in very practical terms, explaining how this transmission works and its significance in these spiritual lineages.
It's like he demystifies it.
He does.
Making it accessible and relatable.
Yeah. And he emphasizes that this transmission isn't about gaining supernatural powers or anything like that.
Right.
It's about removing the inner obstacles that prevent us from realizing our true nature.
And this is where faith comes into play.
Yes.
Right.
It's about trusting in the process.
Yeah. Surrendering to something greater than ourselves. And allowing that grace to work through us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that true faith is not blind belief, but it's this deep trust born out of experience, a willingness to step into the unknown and embrace the transformative journey.
Okay, so if someone's listening to this
and
they're feeling inspired, what would you recommend as a first step? Where should they begin their exploration of these teachings?
I think the most important thing is to cultivate a sense of curiosity and a willingness to explore. Suresh's writings offer this wealth of knowledge, but they're not meant to be passively absorbed. They're an invitation to engage, to question, to experiment, and to discover for yourself what resonates.
It's like embarking on this personal adventure. A journey into the depths of your own being, guided by the wisdom of these ancient teachings.
I like that.
And perhaps the most valuable insight is that you are not alone on this journey.
That's right.
There are teachers, there are practices, there's a lineage of wisdom stretching back thousands of years, all pointing towards the same truth.
And what's that?
The truth of your own inherent divinity.
That's a truth worth exploring.
It is.
And it's a truth that can transform not just our individual lives, but our world as a whole.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired.
Me too.
By this deep dive into Shri Suresh's writings.
Yeah, it's been a real journey of discovery.
It has.
It's a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
And a call to embrace that transformative power within each of us.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this segment.
We have.
We've explored the interconnectedness of body, soul, and the immaterial absolute. We delved into the power of sound and language. And we even touched on the challenges and opportunities of the atomic age.
We did.
I'm ready for a little break.
Okay.
Before we dive into the final part of our deep dive. Okay, so we've explored these fascinating concepts of the three books, the body, the soul, and the immaterial absolute. We've talked about the power of sound and the importance of ancient wisdom in navigating the complexities of the modern world. But I'm still curious about Shri Suresh's personal journey. Like, what can you tell us about his background and how it influenced his writings?
Well, one thing that's really fascinating is that Shri Suresh wasn't always immersed in these spiritual takings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He actually started his career in the corporate world.
Interesting.
He worked in various multinational corporations, dealing with, that fast-paced, results-oriented environment that a lot of us are familiar with.
That's surprising. So how did he make that shift from the corporate world to these deeper explorations of consciousness?
Well, it seems like a pivotal moment for him was meeting his guru, Shri Raghavendra Rao Saheb. He describes his guru as this beacon of light. Someone who really embodied the principles that he writes about. Like a living example of how to integrate spiritual wisdom into everyday life.
You mentioned earlier that Shri Raghavendra Rao Saheb achieved seemingly the highest levels of spiritual realization while living a seemingly normal life. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure.
Because it feels like such a powerful example.
It is.
Especially for those of us who might feel like, Spiritual growth requires renouncing the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shri Suresh emphasizes that his guru wasn't a renunciate or a hermit.
Okay.
He was a family man, an educator, someone who was deeply engaged in the world. And yet he radiated this profound sense of peace, wisdom, and inner stillness that drew people to him.
It's like he found a way to bridge those two worlds.
Yeah.
The material and the spiritual, and to live in this state of harmony and balance.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key takeaways from Shri Suresh's teachings. It's not about escaping the world, it's about transforming our experience of it.
And that transformation begins with ourselves, right?
It does.
With understanding the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and spiritual aspects.
Exactly.
Yeah, recognizing that we're not just bodies, we're not just minds, we're not just souls. We're a synthesis of all these things.
We're a whole.
And Shri Suresh provides us with all these incredible tools and practices like cleaning, constant remembrance, the various yogic techniques to facilitate that integration.
That journey towards wholeness.
Yeah.
It's like he's offering us this toolkit for self-discovery, for exploring the depths of our own being and unlocking our full potential.
But he also stresses the importance of finding a qualified guide.
He does.
Yeah, a teacher who can illuminate the path and provide support along the way.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about individual effort.
Right.
It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
The role of grace and the power of lineage.
Of wisdom passed down through generations of seekers.
And that brings us back to the concept of pranasi pranaha,
yes,
the transmission of spiritual energy.
Right.
Shri Suresh describes how a true guru can transmit this energy, facilitating the student's progress and accelerating their spiritual growth.
It's like receiving a boost of spiritual energy.
A catalyst for awakening and transformation.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's not just a mystical concept.
Right.
He talks about it in very practical terms.
Yeah.
Explaining how this transmission works and its significance in these spiritual lineages.
Yeah, he really demystifies it.
Yeah.
Making it accessible and relatable.
And he emphasizes that this transmission isn't about, gaining supernatural powers or anything like that.
No.
It's about removing the inner obstacles that prevent us from realizing our true nature.
That's the key.
And this is where faith comes into play, right?
It does.
It's about trusting in the process, surrendering to something greater than ourselves and allowing that grace to work through us.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that true faith is not blind belief.
Right.
But it's this deep trust born out of experience.
Okay.
Willingness to step into the unknown and embrace the transformative journey.
So if someone's listening to this and feeling inspired, what would you recommend as a first step? Like, where should they begin their exploration of these teachings?
I think the most important thing is to cultivate a sense of curiosity. And a willingness to explore.
Right.
Shri Suresh's writings offer this wealth of knowledge, but they're not meant to be passively absorbed.
Yeah.
They're an invitation to engage, to question, to experiment.
Right.
And to discover for yourself what resonates.
It's like embarking on this personal adventure. A journey into the depths of your own, being guided by the wisdom of these ancient teachings.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And perhaps the most valuable insight is that you are not alone on this journey.
You're not.
There are teachers, there are practices, there's a lineage of wisdom stretching back thousands of years.
Yeah.
All pointing towards the same truth, the truth of your own inherent divinity.
That's a truth worth exploring.
It is, and it's a truth that can transform not just our individual lives, but our world as a whole. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly inspired by this deep dive into Shri Suresh's writings.
Me too.
It's been a journey of discovery, a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things, and a call to embrace the transformative power within each of us.
I agree.
So to our listener, we encourage you to continue this exploration.
Yes.
Seek out the teachings that resonate with you. Experiment with the practices that feel aligned.
Right.
And most importantly, trust in your own inner wisdom.
That inner voice.
The voice of your soul guiding you towards your highest potential.
And until next time, may your journey be filled with joy, peace, and a deep sense of connection to the divine within and all around you.
Thanks for joining us.